Yeah, I thought we had a really good training camp, competitive. It was a tough camp, especially traveling on the road for 10 days. I thought it was really good for the guys. Thought they responded well. I think the communication between the staff has been great. These last couple of days have been really tough here. It's always hard decisions to make here at the end with the roster. I appreciate all the work that the personnel staff put in, the coaching staff, the communication. There really was some tough decisions here at the end, but I think we're excited here to get this thing going here for Week 1 in Denver.
All right. Go ahead, guys.
Mike, you guys had prioritized availability pretty highly, and guys you brought along. Jalen Armour-Davis hadn't played a ton over his first 3 years. What maybe made him different was worth maybe taking?
Jalen, we looked into. I've studied Jalen since back in Alabama. He has had some injuries, but we feel like we have a good plan here with the training staff and Matt that we're going to be able to get him up to speed. He's a talented corner. As we were going through, these preseason cuts, really, he was, one of the better corners out there that we saw. He's still young, he's talented, and there was, 4 other teams I think put a claim in for him, 4 including us. I think anytime you can add a young corner to the roster, that's why we put the claim in.
Like where Cam is from the time you first got your hands on him here to now getting ready to start Week 1. How do you like his progress?
I'm very pleased with Cam. I mean, the whole staff is the way he's come in here and worked from day one. The time he's put in, early mornings, and just like any other rookie quarterback, they have to work, through some stuff. But I thought just seeing him going up against an R's defense during training camp, having the opportunity to go on the road for 10 days and, go against Todd's defense and Raheem's defense in Atlanta, seeing all those different pressure looks and handling that stuff. That's really the toughest thing for these rookie quarterbacks is really just handling protections and seeing all that. And I think he's done a great job with that. Anytime there are mistakes, he'll go back with Bo and Callie and Nick to work through it. But I think he's done an outstanding job with it.
That being said, how do you like the way Brian Callahan and Holtz and Hardigree have worked with him to get him to this point?
Yeah, the one thing they all work together with him. So whether he's meeting with Bo after practice, I know he meets with Brian, late after practice, after the day's over. So there's this constant communication between all those coaches with them. The relationship with Cam, between Brian and Nick and Bo, has been great. They've all coached quarterbacks before in the past. With Brian and Bo, and I think it's been great. It's constant communication between all of them, and they're all on the same page.
How big is that jump for him from limited snaps, pretty vanilla defenses, and a directive not to get hit, into full games, everything goes defensively, and obviously going to get hit?
Yeah, I mean, the live bullets are flying now. I mean, you go through the preseason, but anytime it's like training camp, it picks up. The preseason picks up in speed, and in Week 1 in Denver, it's going to pick up. So there'll be an adjustment to that. I think he got hit once, took 1 sack here in the preseason. But the speed of the game picks up here as we go on. So it's going to be adjustment for all these rookies, not just him.
What did you see out of Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon that said he needed to be on the 53 ahead of some of the guys who had a little bit of experience?
Yeah, he's done a really good job since even we got him here in OTAs. He's made a lot of progress here. And when you have those young tackles that you think have a potential to hit really high ceiling, and Brendan is one of those guys right now, and sometimes you want to hold on to those guys, especially when you get down to the cuts here. Teams are always looking for young tackles. They're hard to find. I've been pleased with his growth. He's got a ways to go, but working with Bill and the staff, he's he's got a lot of potential. So that's the reason why we held on to him right now.
Talked about being thin on the back end of the roster coming in. He's your lone undrafted rookie. How do you feel like you guys did with your undrafted rookie class, given that?
Yeah, good. I mean, I thought the competition was good. You know, we obviously kept Brendan on, and you know, Restrepo's back here on the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're always, these guys, even though we let them go here now, you know, they could be back here at some point. You know, we made some waiver claims, some guys we added to the practice squad. So I think our staff always does a great job of evaluating these young guys. And, you know, it's different every year for the guys that you keep. It depends, you know, what your depth is on the roster. You know, we found an opportunity here to claim a couple of young guys, couple of corners here at the cutdown day with Warmack too. So, you know, I think they came in here, they competed well, and like I told them too when we released them, this might not be the last time we see you. You know, we could bring you back here on the practice squad at some point this season, so it's always fluid.
How much were those moves to get Womack and Armour Davis a reflection of your expectation for L'Jarius at the start of the season? Just kind of what is your expectation for timeline for the program?
LJ, you know, he's been doing great. You know, we got him out here at practice this week here, and you know, really we'll see how he looks next week. But you know, corners you can't have enough of. I know we have 7 right now in the active, and you know, we went heavy in the O-line. Those positions are tough once you get into the season. So there's a lot of roster gymnastics you have to do here at the beginning to try to, you know, keep some guys. And corners and offensive linemen, in my experience, have been the toughest, you know, position group to really find during the season. So that's really the reason why we went heavy there.
The class of 2023, from just 2 years ago, is really right now down to just Peter. Of course, Tajay's on IR, so is Levis. But it seems, is that just a product of calling out some parts that maybe don't fit as well as some of the guys you brought in, or why do you think that some of those guys just couldn't stick around?
You know, this league is really tough and competitive year to year. So it just happens some of the guys that we brought in, we felt like we were going to keep them. And, you know, those guys will have other opportunities here with other teams, but it's really, it depends on, you know, year to year, really, the guys you bring in, the guys you draft, the free agents that you bring in, and the roster looks different every year. So, you know, those guys will be on teams. They're talented. So, you know, it's just the way the National Football League is. It's a year-to-year thing.
Mike, how tough is it to add a couple of guys to the 53 that haven't played, you know, an NFL snap yet, I guess, in Ravenel and Mousy?
Yeah, you know, Mousy, we watched in the preseason. We got an opportunity to see him here, that last preseason game. You know, we watched him in college. You know, he's a good special teams linebacker. So those young guys that can get on the field right away and play teams, you know, we felt like he's one of those guys that we identified here in the process. And, you know, and then sometimes you're getting guys, like I said, it's a lot of roster gymnastics at this point, and sometimes it's manipulation. And we brought Ravenel in here as a young developmental guy that we wanted to get on the roster to take a look at. We've looked at him the last 2 years. He made a big jump in Baltimore this year. Now he's a big man, he played defensive end. He can slide into 3 technique. So anytime you can get those big guys in here and young and continue to develop them, that was our thinking on that.
Mike, O-line additions as a whole, have they kind of met expectations, whether it's the guys that you were able to add free agency or otherwise?
Yeah. No, we've been really happy, you know, with Dan and Kevin and those guys. They've really had a nice camp. You know, Kevin hasn't done the preseason games, but you know, he's got enough experience there where he's going to be ready to roll here during the season. But you know, having Dan at left tackle, I think he's done a really good job there, and then moving JC to the right. You know, and then getting Cush back here at practice. We'll see, you know, how it looks here next week too. So they're starting to gel though, you know, so I feel good about that unit right now.
11 back on the practice squad, is that indicative that things are progressing well for Lloyd, and good to have 11 back either way?
Yeah, no, that was our expectation to get Corey back. Like I said, you know, really the practice squad really has become like an extension of the active roster where you can move guys up with elevations and stuff. So, you know, we had to do that with Corey right now, but Corey's going to be here.
Mike, in assembling this team, how much of the priority in your mind was playing the long game, so to speak, looking years down the road, maybe more than you would normally given the situation of the team?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to try to hold on and acquire your best players, and especially with young guys here. So, when you're holding on to some young guys here and you're hoping they develop here over the years, that's a part of it. Even if you have even if we've been established in Kansas City where we're holding on to younger guys, just because, there's growth there, there's potential. You don't want to lose those guys. So I think some of the things we did holding on to some of these younger guys, it depends on the roster, but, we want to keep our best players. So, that's really why we kept some of those guys on.
You guys haven't added anybody to the edge rushing department yet. Is that something that you are just satisfied with the group that you have? Or are you looking around maybe the waiver, maybe guys that are veterans waiting for money, getting closer to the season, seeing if those prices change, that kind of thing?
We're always looking for every position, but our edge group has done a good job. We added Ward in here and Draymond in the offseason, and then having Harold here, back here. You can play some special teams as well. So that process of evaluating position groups never ends. We went through and evaluated what could come free here in the preseason, and we felt good about where the guys we had.
What do you see in the two new defensive linemen?
With Shai, he's had a lot of experience. He's played, had some really good years in New Orleans. Shai can play. He's got a little bit more versatility in there. He can play 3 technique. He can play nose. He has experience with Tracy. And with CJ, like I said, he's a young developmental guy who's a big end that can play 3 technique as well. And hopefully he can help us out down the road here.
These guys still developing, but Chim, Alec, and Gunner, how you like what you've seen from those 3, a week away from the season?
Yeah, I mean, they've done some really good things here in camp. I think they're always prepared. That's the big thing, and that's the reason why they being able to get on the field right away is because they're smart and they work hard. And they've done some really good things here in practice and in the game as well. So we've been really pleased with those guys here.
Can you tell us kind of behind the thinking, Mike, about the decision on Crochet, whether or not to keep him on 53 and then get him on the practice squad? So.
Yeah, that was a tough one because he really did have a nice camp for us. We'd like to keep all the guys, but you can only keep 53, and we kept 6 at receiver. But we're really glad he's back here on the practice squad. And like I said to James the other day, I said it's a long season, so it just depended on the numbers that we could keep. And we're glad to have him back here. And it's a long season, and he could be up at some point during the season. But I was really happy with him. The practices, the games. He did a really good job, though.
What does that mean for the punt return starting out?
So Chim will be back there. That's really one of the reasons why we drafted Chim, because of his return ability too. And he's done a nice job out here in practice. So Chim will be out there.
Mike, with the ones on offense, just throughout training camp, the preseason, what did you see that gives you confidence you have what you need around Cam to help him be successful as a rookie?
Yeah, well, I think, one thing, the protection's been good up front. I feel good about the offensive line right now. I feel good about some of these young guys that we added here with Chim, Alec, and Gunner. We added some guys like Van, and, of course, we got Ridley back here. So I think he has some weapons at his disposal. The biggest thing was protecting him, and I think, we've done that with the offensive line. So it's going to be, there's going to be bumps in the road as you go along the season here. But, we feel good about the group that we have out there right now.
With your development of the quarterback, if you could think back to when you were in KC with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and those guys, was there a lot of integrating the things he did at Texas Tech to the offense there with the Chiefs?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and I think Brian has touched on that. He's taken some things that he feels comfortable with that he did in college, has incorporated that. The biggest thing is you want these guys to go out and play fast right away, and some of that stuff is getting the plays in there that they feel comfortable with. So that's certainly something that even before we drafted Cam, that Brian and his staff has been looking at. And we did that with Pat too, though.
How do you feel about the running back room right now?
Yeah, I feel good with Tony. We'll get Tajay back here at some point. I think Julius has had a really good camp. And Mullings is, he's getting better, and he's going to be out there on teams right now. So I feel good about that room now, and we're able to get Mims back here on the practice squad, which I felt good about. He's played in games before, so I feel good about that room right now.
You earned that right. Cam's definitely earned it. The leadership he's shown over the course of his time here from the offseason through training camp. Those guys have a lot of respect for him. And, traditionally, your quarterback tends to be a captain. That's just sort of how it works. But I do think all the qualities that he has shown as a leader are very much deserving of the captaincy. So not surprised by any stretch. I think it was pretty close to unanimous for him. So that was good to see.
Similarities with Burrow at all?
Yeah, I think similar situations for sure. Rookie quarterback coming in, and the expectation is to lead. And back in 2020, Joe did that in a very similar fashion as Cam has done. So you can make some parallels there for sure.
What do you think about the rest of the group that was elected, and how you like the leadership on this team as a whole?
I really think our leadership as a whole has improved. The things we talked about all offseason long, the work we put into that process, is really encouraging from an entire team standpoint. That's the most important thing to me. We got a lot of guys that focus on making each other better. They try to bring people with them, and those are the things that we emphasize with the leadership portion. We've had a lot of growth in our leadership, I think, over the course the last 6 months, and it's been really encouraging to see. There's a lot of guys that got votes too, which was also really, really cool to see. The guys that were elected captains were the highest vote getters, but there was certainly guys that were right in that mix as well that would be deserving of that in a normal course of a voting process. So really happy with those guys. I love that group of guys. They're about the right stuff. They work the right way. They do everything we ask from a leadership perspective. So excited about that group. And then again, there's a lot of other guys that I think have grown a tremendous amount that are really going to help us along the way too. So the whole team is, in general, leadership wise, I'm very pleased with.
Having Ridley being named one of the captains.
What was the first part?
Within the group of captains, having Ridley being one of them, what are some of the things you feel makes him worthy of being a captain for the team?
A lot of times, the starting point for captains is production. That's usually the starting point, guys that perform, which he's certainly done. The other part of it is how they work. And I think you guys all see it. There's probably not a guy that practices as hard as Rid on a snap-to-snap basis. He's really grown in his leadership. I'm actually really proud of Rid and the things that he's accomplished in that realm over the course of the offseason. He's deserving of it. He has earned it, and I'm glad his teammates see it the same way.
How much is the lack of waiver claims on offense about what wasn't available in the waiver pool? How much is it about what you guys feel about the back end of your offensive roster?
I think it's both. I think it's twofold. You always go by what's out there and available to you. And the other part is we feel pretty good about where we're at offensively. Certainly the work's not ever done, but those guys that we have up front, the receiver room, the tight ends, all those guys have put a ton of work in, and feel good about where we're at. And we're all going to have opportunities to go see how that looks when we start playing, but feel good about that group of guys in general.
Mike said earlier that Jim's going to handle return duties to start the year. What has he done to earn that, and what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, first and foremost, he's experienced. He was a pretty productive returner in the SEC. He was productive at Wisconsin. He's done it a lot, so he's got a lot of reps at it. He's looked good in practice. He's a sure catcher. He's got real speed and ability to break. I'm excited to see what he can do back there. He's hopefully someone that can help us flip the field and win that field position battle. But he's got a lot of reps and a lot of experience doing it, so excited to see him do it for real.
What kind of roles?
You ready for the first one?
Yeah, I think he's trending that way for sure. It's been a really positive week for him. He's been back at practice. We'll get to the injury designations next week, but pleased with where he's at. He's worked really hard. It's been a long off season for him. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of, kind of solitude in there when you're trying to get back. So really happy for him that he's back out here with his teammates and practicing. He's looked good, and we're going to keep building his volume and getting him ready for week 1. So we'll see where that ends up, but feel good about where he's at.
What kind of roles do you see for the guys that you picked up off the waiver wire and signed to have early on, and how long does it usually take a guy to get up to speed in the system when he's coming in cold?
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time. There's no doubt. The benefit that we do have, though, is two of the guys we claimed, active are guys that played in Baltimore that have experience and familiarity with the scheme. So they could walk out there and hear most, not all, but most of the terms and have a pretty good idea of what's expected. Then he was, Jalen Armour-Davis was with Denard for a year, so they got some familiarity. So those things help, certainly. But yeah, it's still a process. They're trying to get it's a new building with new faces. They don't know anybody's name yet. They don't hardly even know who their coaches are. It takes a second, but we're counting on those guys to get up to speed quickly.
Tuttle, a guy that can maybe come in right away, given his experience, and kind of help bolster the D-line depth?
Yeah, that's the intent. That's why we signed him, is to help that process, being able to have a couple of guys we can roll through there. I think Mike and his staff did an excellent job of trying to identify players that could help bolster our depth and bring up the back end of the roster for guys that can help and contribute. So I'm excited to get those guys going, and Shai's one of those guys I think can help us.
Is there anything Sweat needs? Yeah, the Sweat back at full.
Yeah.
Sure. Anything you want to add to that? I'll answer them both.
Anything Sweat needs to do to be ready, next week in terms of physically?
Yeah, he seems good right now. He was involved in practice all week. He'll be in, again, injury designations. We'll see how the next week shapes out for him, but expect him to be in a pretty good spot. For him right now, it's a conditioning and football shape. He's missed a decent amount of time in there, so it's just getting him back up to speed with the conditioning and with the pads. And so that's why we practice some pads today, is to keep a bit of our edge. Feel good about that process.
Couple more. All set?
Yeah. He's good. He missed a little bit of time this week with the same soreness and issue that he had last week. So I don't think it's anything that's going to keep him out. But we'll see how it gets through the weekend and the next week. But again, I think most of the guys we plan on tracking pretty good for week 1 here. So we'll get into details again next week, but feel pretty good about him.
Obviously, before Tajay got injured, you had talked up here about wanting him and Pollard to split reps, and Pollard not having to carry the load. Obviously, that's going to change for the first month now.
Yep.
I mean, what does that do, I guess, to your offensive game plan when you have the guy toting the rock more than you wanted?
Not much. We would have definitely had some very specific things in for each of them. Things that they do well. Without having Tajay, we'll lean in on Tony. He's proven capable. I mean, he's had multiple games where he's carried the ball quite a bit. But Julius, I think, has done a nice job. He's a different style runner than Tony, and to have both those guys available, happy about that. And then Kalel's got the same kind of build and bigger back physicality. So we got two guys that we can use. We're going to use everybody on our roster on game day. Anybody who's up is going to have a role, and we're going to have to do a good job of putting them in the right positions. But Tony's capable of carrying the load and holding the fort down until we get Tajay back in the fold.
What could Barton bring as a captain, as a guy who's, waited 3 years in high school, waited 3 years in college, waited 3 years to be a starter in the pros? He's kind of got a different story.
Yeah, he's faced a longer road than some. He's had to earn his way in this league, and he's certainly done that. What you see from him in the middle of the defense, just his communication ability, the energy that he brings, there's something to all of that. The biggest part, though, I think, is the communication. I mean, he can get guys lined up. He's like a quarterback out there on defense. So that part is really exciting to have that piece in the middle of the defense as a communicator. He does everything the right way, too, as a guy that's had to earn it over the course of his career. Those are the guys that tend to figure it out and understand what it takes because they had to go the long road sometimes. And really excited about him. He was almost a unanimous captain vote as well, just which speaks to his how he's ingrained himself here and the leadership ability of the players seeing him too.
Cody, being
No, you go.
being named the team captain, kind of a long time coming for you. What's that mean to be able to take on that role and be a guy that everybody's going to look to for leadership?
Yeah, it meant a lot to me. I was very grateful, very honored to get that. And I was just talking to somebody earlier about it. The biggest thing to me is, it's a great honor because it's voted by your teammates. It's nothing with, politics or this or that. It's all just, voted by your peers within the locker room and all the guys you spend time with. And so to me, it's a great honor, and I'm very appreciative of the boys, and here we are now.
Was that one of your goals coming in here, to be looked at as one of the leaders?
Yes, it was. It's been a goal of mine for a while now, and I remember a couple years ago when I played for Ron Rivera back in D.C. He gave me a book at the end of the year, and he's like, I see a leader in you, and he's like, leadership doesn't start with you, but it can end with you, or something like that. Maybe I might be botching it. Sorry, Ron. But since then it was a goal of mine to be named captain, and this year they voted me captain. Like I said, it's a great honor, and I feel very grateful for it.
What's the line like? You come into a new team, you probably don't want to overstep things early, but you also want to assert yourself. How'd you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, you said exactly. When you first come in, like I said, I didn't want to overstep myself. I just had to get a feel of the locker room, feel of the guys, and when I first got here, this is probably the funnest locker room I've been a part of, and just how tight knit the guys are. That was one of the first things I thought, and also they were just very receptive of me and just like accepting of who I was and just let me be me, and it was easy to mesh with the guys, and I feel like my relationships here with the guys have normally it kind of finds its way, and I felt like here it jumped quick,
You've been in a linebacker room like this where, you are clearly head and shoulders in terms of experience over everybody else. What does that, put on your shoulders? And have you seen that in any of the other teams that you played for?
I've seen it when I was a rookie in the league. So when I got to Seattle, they were older guys. Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Michael Kendricks, all in year 8. I think KJ was going to year 9, I think, when I first got in there. Yeah, so it's flip-flop now, but I just took from what they taught me and how they conduct themselves and taught me how to be a pro. And I'm just doing the same things that I've learned along the way and doing the same thing now with these young guys.
Cody, what do you think? What was it about that Denver defense last year that made y'all so successful? And how much of a challenge do you think this is going to be for Cam in his first game?
Yeah, it'll be a good challenge, but what made them good is they just, obviously the rush was the biggest factor, I think. If you're getting pressure on the QB, it's tough, for the QB. It's a long day. And so that was the biggest thing, was the rush, and we played together well. And it's going to be a great challenge for Cam. And, I'm excited to see Cam go out there and play hard and do his thing. He's the stuff we give him here during camp and all the looks we give him, all the pressure we give him, especially for a rookie, he's handled it well, and he's a baller.
Cedric Gray said at the end of the preseason game last week that you are somebody who obviously you took a lot of notes from, and you came in with some really good advice. What have you seen with Ced in terms of growth over the last, month or so?
Grown a ton. I talked to him and James just now once we broke this last practice, and I said from day one of camp to where you guys are now, the growth has been crazy. Their trend has been going up, and the way Ced has developed as a player and all the things he's growing on, and there's still not just him. This is all of us as players. We all have things we need to work on and get better at, but just the way he's been training as a player has just been up and up and up, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
Cody, you were around a rookie quarterback last season in Bo Nix, who was able to find a lot of success and, help you guys get to the playoffs. I guess I know Cam is a different player from Bo, but what are maybe some of the similarities that you see in them that maybe helped Bo be successful that you see in Cam?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is just the maturity level. When he first came in, it reminded me of Bo, just the maturity level, to be able to come in and lead and just take command of the offense, take command of the huddle. And so that's the biggest thing I'd say, is just the maturity level.
What's it going to be like, I guess, going up against Bo here in a couple, 10 days? And
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, playing in Denver.
It's going to be fun. Just leave it at that. It's going to be fun.
Should you help your teammates some on their personnel or what to expect from what they're facing and the altitude or everything?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of familiarity, obviously, being there last year. And so, I'm giving the guys some things, just some things that I took from last year, things that I know. And so, obviously during the season, I'm not scouting their own offense. We were playing other teams, but being around those guys for so long, there's things I can give the guys.
Is there something specific that gives you confidence about this defense, big picture, kind of heading into the year?
Yeah, just like I said earlier about the locker room, just how close-knit everyone is. The biggest thing to me is when you're on a team and everyone plays for each other, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And so as close as we are on defense, not just defense with the team, but as close as we are on defense, it's easy to go out there and just want to play for yourself and just, I'm going to get my plays, make, whatever it is. But when you want to play for the guy next to you and play hard for him and do your job, that's when you can really take things to the next level.
When you came here, was there any reservation about joining a team that had been 3-14? And have you seen that guys have maybe turned the page from that, the guys that were here last year?
Yeah, no, there was no reservation about it because I knew they were going to change some things. Obviously, you don't want to repeat the past, and so I knew there's going to be some big changes, and so that wasn't a factor in that. And even the guys that were here last year, there's no holding on to. Let's say they had a bad day or the team had whatever it was. There's no like, I never saw any. Oh, just like last year. There was none of that. Everyone's got new perspective, new energy. It's all about this year.
With week one, there's so many variables all across the league. You just don't know. What's the main thing you got to go into the very first game of the season with?
I'd say the biggest things are just playing your technique and your fundamentals and playing your job within the scheme. Because like you said, week one, there's not a lot of tape. There's preseason tape, but they can go out there and do whatever they want. And so just playing your job or your role within that scheme and just, trusting your eyes. The eyes are something we talk about in the linebacker room. Your eyes are your biggest weapon. And so just trusting what you see and just playing ball.
This week and the next, preparing for the opener and trying to gear up at the right level.
It's not really challenging. It's something you look forward to, getting a chance to get a head start, on the opponent, getting a few extra days, look ahead and get some work and get a feel for them.
What was the feeling when you found out you'd been voted a captain, and I guess you just keep being you by the way you lead?
That was big, just knowing how your teammates think of you, that holds a lot of weight, not the coaches or anybody else voting the guys that, your peers. So, that meant a lot to me.
How would you describe your, leadership, way you lead a team and how you work?
I would say by example, for sure, but I'm starting to get more into the vocal aspect of it, starting to bring other guys along, younger guys, just talking to them, just going to the younger guys around the team, just talking to them, just trying to get to know them.
How do you like the leadership on this team as a whole?
I feel like we're in a great place as far as leadership. That was something that we kind of questioned last year. We're kind of iffy on who the leaders were on this team, but I feel like we've done a great job in that area.
Do you think the offensive line looks different to you, Tony, going into this year as opposed to last, or is it too early to say?
They definitely look different. I would say they're more confident in everything that they're doing. It's a lot more communication and guys on the same page. And, it's the second year for the most part of people playing together, so guys are getting a feel for each other. We've been out here for a while now, so everybody's getting a feel for everybody.
Tony, what do you make of the camp that Julius had and Khalil as well, especially with the extra opportunity for Tajay not in?
They've had great camps. Guys like Khalil, just showing his physicality, his ability to make plays, and Julius, he's a guy, that ever since I've been here, he's made plays. He's made the most of every opportunity he's been given.
Anything you do to maybe help Tajay along? It seems like he's in a bit of a frustrating period with some injuries last season into this one.
Just talking to him every day, keeping him in high spirits. Every morning I try to send out a Bible quote to him every morning just to get him going, get him up. But he's the type of guy, he has so much self-confidence. He's not as down as most people think he is from the injury. He's all smiles around the building. He's just ready for the opportunity to get back on the field and be out there.
Tony, did you envision when Cam Ward came in that he'd be named a captain as a rookie? And I know he's a quarterback, but when did you start to see, okay, this guy really is a guy who can wear the seat?
After playing with him for as long as I have so far and getting to know him, it's not surprising. Just the type of person he is. He's a natural leader. The way that he goes about his business. He's the first guy in the building every day, one of the last guys out. So, just the way that he conducts himself, it's not surprising.
Tony, you played in Dallas. You ran behind some pretty good offensive lines and all. Can a running back kind of tell when an offensive line is solid and good, and what's your assessment of this year's addition?
You definitely can, get a feel for your O-line, but a lot of it is on the backs too. Helping your backs out, helping your line out, making their jobs easy, knowing how to set the blocks up for each run. Every run is different. You got to know, where's the run intended to hit, who's blocking, who's pulling. Once you get a feel for all those different aspects and then, get a feel for, setting the blocks, helping the linemen work up to the linebackers, it all just comes together.
Last year when Tajay was out, what did you have to change, or did you have to change anything to deal with the increased workload, and kind of what lessons do you take from that period to take into this year?
It wasn't really much of a change for me. The way that I attack every day, I just prepare myself for any type of situation. I like to push myself when I'm out here, taking as many reps as I can. Just trying to get in the game shape. So when the game comes, it's second nature.
Within the game, though, how does that change? Like knowing that, okay, this might be my series. I may not have this next series, but I have the one after that.
I would say it just makes you be more relaxed, knowing that you're going to be in there the whole game. You're going to get a feel for the game, get into a good flow, and not be kind of in and out. So it's a good feeling knowing you got time to just let things come to you.
You said it was kind of iffy last year, maybe figuring out who the leaders were. What made it that way?
I would say it was just one of those things that we weren't really, the leadership is an area that we were kind of lacking in that area, but now, this year, I would say that's something that's not a question.
Is that what inspired you to be more vocal this year?
Coach, he challenged all us this offseason, just not want us to lead by example, but, bring guys with us, bring younger guys along with us, and I feel like all of us, for the most part, have, taken that on.
What's feeling like now just 10 days away from the opener? Just what's the excitement level like? What's anticipation like for you and for the team?
Everybody's excited, ready to play real football, ready for it to count, ready to hit somebody else, go against somebody else. You get tired of going against the same guys for so long. So, we're just ready to go out there and compete.
For you personally, Tony, you were 1,000-yard back last season. What is there for you to build on this year?
Just keep growing, keep building from, every year, trying to improve every year. And that's what I'm working on.
Anything specific, though, that you want to be better at?
Just all around, overall, just trying to better my game, mentally, physically, however you want to look at it.
To be voted the captain.
It's a great honor, especially coming from my teammates. Something, you come out here and you try to kind of try to work for it and try to get that honor from your teammates.
You've been pretty open about some of the tough things that have gone on in your career, too. Does that make being named the captain now kind of even more sort of fulfilling?
Yeah. Especially this year when I got the honor, when I heard my name, I was like, I actually was excited about it because, I'm an older guy now and more vocal in my game, and I just think that was a great honor to get from my teammates.
Did it surprise you?
Nah, not really. Nah, not really. I had an idea. I had an idea, I would probably get picked.
Who were the guys that maybe showed you the way when you first came into the league, and maybe how do you hope to influence others around you?
Guys like Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, those Ricardo Allen. Those are some good leaders. I was around and was soaking up the game from them as much as I could. They were some really good leaders.
How do you hope to set the tone and maybe have teammates kind of follow your lead?
First, handle business, on the field, off the field, doing the right things, playing the right way, getting extra work in, getting my treatment done, being on time, and just being, more vocal, just telling the guys, this is how we're gonna do it, and doing it before they I tell them to do it.
Given your bond that you built with Cam this offseason, in what moment did you realize, hey, this guy's got captain material as well?
Oh man, he came in like it was his team. It was no brainer that he was going to get picked because he breaks the huddle down, he talks to the whole team. He's easily a leader on this team.
As one of the leaders, how ready do you think this team is to open this season? Obviously, still some work to do.
We're ready, man. We got to be ready. September 7th is the game. We don't have a choice. The game is coming, and we've been practicing against a bunch of, 2 other teams ourselves. So it's time to play football. We ready.
How big is the jump for Cam from vanilla defenses, limited snaps, a directive not to get hit, to playing the whole thing against a defense that wants blood?
He played every preseason game. We threw everything at him. It's time to play football. We'll see when the lights come on in Denver. But I think he's ready, man. He's a confident guy. He's had everything thrown at him. We had some really good plays out here. So it's time to just make it real now.
Can you describe a little bit that relationship that you have with Cam and why you think it's happened so quickly? Why you guys have been able to bond so quickly?
In what way? Just like.
Yeah. How it happened so quickly and
it's intentional. We've put the work in, being friends, and in the past game, talking about it after practice, throwing after practice, throwing before we even had camp. just meeting up. It's intentional, so we want to be good, and we're going to be good, and that's pretty much what it is.
You came to Alabama a few years after you did, but you know anything about Jalen Armour Davis?
Yeah, I don't know much about him, but yeah, I had a couple words with him. B South Phi is my brother, so he's a Bama guy, and I expect nothing but good things from him.
You had to go against Snead in practice this last couple of days. Does he seem like he was back? He seemed like
he seems like Snead for sure. Still could feel a little bit on my chin today from a little jam. So he looks good, man. I think he looks good, and happy to have him back for sure.
7 years, not a real long time. You're 7 years older than Cam, and he's fresh out of college. You've been in the league for a long time, certainly experienced a lot more. How much do you feel like you guys have in common? Are you surprised at how much you have in common with age difference?
We got a lot in common for sure. He's a leader, man. I'm telling you, at his age, he's a little bit, different than I was. I was a little bit more quieter, but times have changed, man. He's a quarterback, and he's a leader. I've been telling him that as soon as I met him, I was like, man, you kind of seem like an older guy, So, he's confident. He's confident, and that's a big thing to have in NFL.
Do you expect to get the most attention you've ever gotten defensively? I think teams are going to look at this and say, well, Ridley's the number one thing to take away.
I hope not, but if they do, I got all the faith in our guys. We got some young guys in there they're gonna bust some heads. So hey, we're gonna get them. They're gonna whatever they want to do. We're gonna adjust, but I hope not.
Along those lines, how good was it to see Van Jefferson step up and make a play like he did the other night?
That's the expectation. That's what I know he can do, and that we don't look at the negative. We only look at the positive, and that's the expectation right there.
Tony talked about leadership and just how much different it feels this year compared to last year. You agree with that as well?
100%. We've definitely we've definitely stepped up as leaders, especially the guys that been here last year, and you see the guys that are the leaders and the captains. We've definitely stepped up more vocally, and we always did the work, and it's we just we bringing guys along, and we just putting the confidence into each other, and it's just night and day, honestly.